The immigrants are here and they're stealing your jobs. This is one of the concepts that's been going around a lot right now with the sudden influx of immigrants coming into the country. We know that the real estate prices are on the rise and that a lot of immigrants are able to buy real estate before a citizen can. And just so you know, it's not just your fault. It could be very well your fault, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. But there are some concepts available right now to immigrants that are not available to citizens. From hidden funding sources to bold risk-taking mentalities, and some things that you have never even thought about. And I'm going to explain them all in this video today. How are new immigrants buying real estate before citizens? Now, first, I'm going to blame the government. The government is allowing immigrants to come in to our country at a very, very rapid pace. What they're looking to do, number one, is to stimulate growth of our population in our country. The higher populated our country, the more taxes people pay. The more taxes people pay, the more money the government makes. And that's why they want more immigrants coming into the country. Immigrants tend to have more children than the average American or Canadian citizen does. So they create more growth per household. Now, where are these guys getting money from? That's the question. So they come here with the mentality that they're definitely, there's not a lot of money to go around, but a lot of them are getting money from back home. It's called pooling, and a lot of immigrant families do this. Now, one of the benefits of being an immigrant is that you do have these large families with the potential to have large sums of money, and they pool their money together for the success of the entire family. So immigrant mentality is different than the average Western mentality. They're not just thinking solo. Like, for example, I'm thinking about Sean's household, Sean's children, Sean's wife. That's what I'm thinking about myself. Whereas an immigrant mentality is thinking about their entire family. How can we get our family to Canada? How can we get our family to the United States? How can we get our family out of a poor third world country with government corruption and get to the Western dream, basically, is what they're looking for. Now, I'm not saying any country is good or bad or whatever, but this is some of the mentalities that go on. There tends to be more opportunity in the Western world. In Canada, in the United States, we're not taught to save very well. But whereas the immigrant mentality, they're taught from a very young age to scrape and to save for a rainy day, because rainy days do come. Whereas in Canada, in the US, in Australia, in the UK, we're taught to go and earn a living and then go buy something. So for example, you get a raise, well, all of a sudden, maybe you can afford a higher car payment, or you can go and afford to buy a PlayStation or eat steak every day. Our concept of saving is not for multi-generational wealth, whereas the immigrant mentality is absolutely for multi-generational wealth, if they can get to that level. Some immigrants want their money out of their country so bad. So let's use China as an example. China is a dictatorship, and they want to get their money out of the country. That's why you see Vancouver and New York and Toronto home sales just like shoot through the roof with Chinese investors, because they're willing to buy the property. Hopefully it appreciates for them at any price that's given, as long as it's not investing more in China, because they know that the government can come in at any time, tax them higher, or just take their money away and shut down their bank. So a lot of families, immigrant families, are coming to Canada and coming to the United States with money already. They may have sold a home in their home country, or sold their farmland in their home country, and now they're coming here. They want to invest that money somewhere, and they want to buy real estate here. And I want to talk a little bit more on the family unit concept that immigrants have. So if they're coming from back home and they can't all afford to buy a house each in Canada. What a lot of immigrants' family will do instead of renting and living solo is they will buy a property together, and they'll put one family in the basement and another family on the main floor, and they'll do that until the other family can afford to buy their own property. It's genius. And it is a concept that Canadians and Americans most likely will not do. When they want to get out of their parents' house, as an example, they just want out. They're going to rent somewhere. The immigrants don't like to rent. They prefer to buy properties. So the immigrant mentality forces them to not have the ego that the Canadians and the Americans have, where they need to be solitary and independent. They want to get there, absolutely, but they want to get there in an intelligent way, the way that they've been taught that you should do things in the United States or Canada. What most Canadians don't realize is that immigrants are coming from a place often where they have unstable economies. They don't trust their governments. They have really dangerous real estate practices where they could lose a lot of money. And in some countries, lack of property ownership rights, where you can own the land, for example, for 50 years, and all of a sudden the government can take that land away from you. Well, you don't want to put your money into a situation like that. You want to be buying a property like you and I do on an everyday basis and be able to own that property forever once you've paid it off. So when they get to Canada, they see these predictable patterns where we have a stable market, we have stable interest rates, where we trust our government and we own the rights to our land. And we also see very commonly appreciation over time. That's the value of the property going up over time. So it's like a win-win. They're getting savings, they're getting ownership of a property, and they're getting their family out of a situation that's totally unpredictable. For them, Canadian real estate and American real estate feels very safe. So Canadians are always thinking, and Americans are always thinking, I'm going to time the market and I'm going to buy at a low, where the immigrant mentality is, if I don't buy right now, I may never be able to buy in this country. And when they buy, they feel like they can stay here forever. And that's what the government wants. That's what our government wants. They want people investing in the economy, paying taxes. So a Canadian or an American person that's renting downtown, I see it with my friends a lot. My friends a lot of them are in their 40s and they've rented their entire lives. They've moved out of mom and dad's house, they went to school, they got the career, and they moved downtown and they're living the awesome life, going to restaurants, getting raises at their work, and then spending that money on restaurants and spending that money on rent, whereas the immigrant doesn't want to do that. They don't want to be renting forever. A lot of my friends in their 40s are still renting now today. Whereas an immigrant, they want to buy as soon as possible. They want to get the largest property in the best area to put their kids in school. They're thinking long term. They're thinking, I moved from across the world, from overseas to get here, and what's the best steps I can take to make this work. So the immigrant mentality comes with absolute urgency, whereas people that live here often don't have the urgency that the immigrants have. And I see it every day, and I'm disappointed every day in Canadians, in Americans, in that they're not taking the initiative that the immigrants are taking. And this is why the immigrants are getting the jobs before them, is that they're taking the initiative. They're pushing. A lot of countries where these immigrants are coming from, owning property is a sign of wealth, and renting is a sign of poverty. So for example, if you're talking the Philippines, or if you're talking India, or if you're talking China, Singapore, owning property is a sign of wealth. That means someone could look at you and they could say, well, they're doing well. They own their property. It's true here as well, but we have a lot of gurus that are on the internet and they're preaching rent, rent, rent. And rent is easy, right? But you never own it. You're just renting forever. So Canadians and Americans think renting is flexible. Whereas immigrants just think renting is for the poor. Another concept that makes immigrants able to buy property sooner than a lot of citizens can is because there are special programs designed in the mortgage and real estate world for immigrants. For example, there's the New to Canada program, which allows an immigrant 5% down, and what they can do is they can go buy property right away, within 6 months to a year of them being in the country. So as long as they have a permanent residency or have a visa over 184 days, you can buy property in Canada. And I'm sure it's the same with the United States, but there's special programs for it. We can use international credit bureaus to verify their credit history. We can just get a letter from their landlord. So it can be a lot easier for them to secure financing compared to a citizen that has history. So for example, a citizen, let's use myself as an example. If I was screwing up in my younger years, like a lot of people do with their credit, I may not be able to get approved for a mortgage because I screwed my credit up already. Whereas the immigrant is getting a brand new, fresh chance at a credit bureau. And at this point, they're already at the mature stage, mature enough to leave their family home in the old country and come to our country and be able to buy real estate. So they're mature enough that they take care of their credit. Whereas a lot of citizens, in their younger age, were not mature enough to take care of their credit, and they screwed things up for themselves for many, many years later. Immigrants look at every single program and opportunity. I see it on my website analytics alone, but the immigrants are looking new to Canada. They're looking at benefits for immigrants. They're looking at grants. They're looking at all of these things where Canadian citizens oftentimes aren't looking for that. They want something just presented and given to them. And that's not the way things work in at least the finance world. Whereas the immigrants are doing the research, they're sharing it in their community groups, and they're getting approved. Canadians and Americans believe in a lot of concepts that the immigrants don't really believe in. They're always talking about doom and gloom. That's the way our society has kind of been trained by our government, is to talk on doom and gloom. So right now they're talking about inflation. Inflation is erratic right now. It's all over the map. Should I wait to buy real estate if inflation is so high? Maybe the rates are going to go way down. Maybe the Bank of Canada or the Bank of the United States is going to bring the rates way down. Maybe I'll wait until then. I think there is more inventory out right now because the real estate agents are starting to say that there's a lot of inventory. So prices are probably going to go down. No, they're not. They're not always going to go down. And this is the way Canadian and American mentality is. They're always waiting for something to happen, whereas the immigrant just wants to get in right away. They want to get the house. They want to get ownership. They want to get their lives going. They want to get that house paid off. And this is why the immigrants are excelling in our economies. So, are we all just too comfortable? I think that might be the case. I think we're all a little bit too comfortable, whereas the immigrant is not comfortable at all. They want to get comfortable, but they're not comfortable at all. We can't always be waiting for the bottom. It's a great concept, but when is it going to come? Is it going to come after you spend $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on renting someone else's property and paying the utilities for that property? Because if that's the case, buying property now would be similar to dollar cost averaging. As a citizen, I would say don't always wait. There's timing that can happen with markets, and sometimes you're just priced out of the market. But you could wait so long that you are going to be totally priced out of the market, and you're going to regret it in the very end. So stop complaining about the immigrants. It doesn't make sense. The immigrants are coming here. They're doing what they think they need to do to get their life going. And you should too. Don't wait for the bottom. Don't wait for the crash. Change your mentality to the hustle mentality that the immigrants do if you want to keep up with them. And not everyone does want to keep up with them. My name is Sean Rampersaud. Thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Thanks.